Today's story was written by Reddit user Blood of the Forest. My cause of death was sudden, but the dying itself had taken a while. It had been a car accident, and whilst I'd been conscious in the day or two that followed, I'd not been responsive once since I'd been hit. It was made gently clear to my sister that whilst everyone was doing the best that they could, it wasn't a hopeful situation. In that short amount of time before I'd lost contact with the world, I'd felt that the medical team knew full well that I was going to die, and that everything they were doing was less for me and more to give my friends and family a chance to say goodbye. I knew when I sat up that I was dead. Outside of films and TV, basically nobody goes from comatose to sat bolt upright and fully lucid with nothing in between the two states. My body hadn't sat upright at all, and I guess now it never will. I didn't feel as scared as I thought I would, just a dull ache of realization that it was all over. I looked at my body with a detached curiosity and wondered if I was all the way dead or just teetering on the edge. Was there some next stage that I'd move along to once I was well and truly deceased, or was this it? "Hi," a voice behind me said, and I turned around to see who'd spoken. The woman was sat in the same uncomfortable teal chair that my sister would sit in when she visited me, and she was looking right at me. Not at my body, which was still exactly where I'd left it, but at me. She didn't look otherworldly at all. She didn't look alarming enough to be death or a demon, and she didn't look placid and perfect enough to be any kind of angel. A ghost, perhaps? But that still didn't fill in the blanks, as whoever this woman was, I'd never met her in my life. "Are you in the right room?" I asked her, and she smiled slightly. "Yes, I'm here for you." "Because I'm dying?" I guessed. "Because we both are." I didn't know what to say to that, and my new friend took a moment to figure out how to elaborate. "My name's Alyssa, and I tell people what happens after death. You know, after this bit. I've done that for about 20 years now, and I think it's worth doing, but I can't anymore because it's my time to move on. So I'm here to see if you'll be my successor." "Oh, right then." My brain was dizzy with all this new information, and I couldn't process everything right away. Alyssa didn't rush me though, and waited patiently to see what I'd say next. I walked over to her and leant against the wall. "What does happen next then?" I asked, and she laughed. "Fucked if I know." My eyes shot towards Alyssa, and she smiled and shrugged. "Look, all I know is there is this period, the bit we're in right now, and then people move on. This in-between period varies from person to person, but it seems like once someone's told what to expect, when they move on, it goes a little faster. Mine is actually the longest I've come across, but it isn't like I'm some sort of expert. I was normal in life, and even directly after death, I didn't get into doing this, but there was this girl, and I don't know, I mean, it wasn't a painful or traumatic death in the great scheme of things. She was just a college student, and she tripped whilst hurrying to a lecture, and she just fell perfectly wrong. It was instant, but she was freaking out so much, and so I told her that it was going to be okay, and that she hadn't lost her life so much as moved on from one phase of who she was to another. She asked about deceased relatives, and I told her that when she was ready to move on, that she'd meet them. And after that, I just didn't stop." "You talked to everyone who died near you and told them there's a heaven, despite not knowing anything?" I asked incredulously. "I talked to everyone who died," Alyssa corrected me. "Once you're dead, time works differently, and you can sense other people's deaths while they're happening. So when I realised that this was important to me, then I started seeking them out. And I didn't tell them all they were going to heaven. That wasn't even exactly what I said to that first girl. Just that the people she loved were waiting for her. Just what she wanted to hear. I nodded, but more to show that I was listening than in any sort of agreement. I was dimly aware that in the time it had taken us to have this talk, so far, doctors had come in and out of the room. Everything they'd been doing seemed so much more distant than my conversation with Alyssa. I looked blankly ahead at the room containing who I used to be and tried to figure out what to do. What if I don't know what they think comes next? Or what if what they expect to happen to them isn't what will happen, if there's any sort of fairness to it all? Innocent people who believe they're going to hell and monsters who think they're headed to heaven. That sort of thing. If there's another freaking Hitler and I go talk to him, do I have to tell him he's going to be okay too? Alyssa smiled at me. That's the thing. There are no rules here. As far as not knowing what people expect comes next, people are usually pretty vocal about it if you give them space to be. You don't seem a total moron, and I honestly don't think that conversations with the dead are that much harder than those with the living. And when it comes to it, whether or not you let them go along believing in death, whatever it is that they believed in life, that's up to you. You can choose to gently comfort everyone you come across, or you can scare the shit out of everyone you think deserves it. Did you tell anyone they were going to hell? I asked curiously. Alyssa laughed. I don't think that either answer would be very helpful here, so I'm just going to leave that one. It doesn't matter what I did. You get to choose how my job gets done from here on out, either way. I understood at this point, but I still had one more question. Why did you do it? I get why you helped out that first person, but what made you keep doing it with everyone, year after year? Because I could, Alyssa said gleefully. Because once I realised I could give people one final moment of believing everything could be okay, then I couldn't see how I could even really not. And since this is the closest you're going to get to one of those moments from me, I should point out it really is okay if you don't want to do this. I have no power over you. You can say no. Or you can agree but lie and do whatever you want once I've passed over, and I'll never know. At least I assume I won't. But my point still stands. I'm going to leave soon, and so whatever happens next is up to you. She looked a little blurry, and I was pretty sure it was because this conversation would be over very soon, no matter what I said. I don't want to say no, I said quietly. I think you're right, so yeah, I'll do it. Ha ha! Alyssa yelled. I knew it! Thank you! Her outline was becoming increasingly hazy, and I knew instinctively that her time was almost up. And Alyssa, I said before she could leave, I think that maybe you've lasted this long because someone or something thought that what you were doing was right. So if you're leaving now, maybe that's just because you've done enough and it's your time for reward. I couldn't see her anymore, and when she replied, I could barely hear it. Oh, I'm so glad I chose you.